Perfect.
Hi.
Hello,
Hello. All right.
Malik. Long
Good
time.
afternoon. A
Yeah.
long time no see, Janet.
Yes. Good afternoon to
You
you
look
as
great.
well. Oh, you look great as
Both of you look
well.
great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank
Wow.
you. I like the setup. Is that in one of your floating houses?
Yeah. Welcome
Yes.
aboard. It's our little satellite space station here in the middle of the bay, broadcasting from Eco Floating Homes.
Wow. And it seems like you look like professional podcaster with all the stuff. You got the microphone and the headphones and
You got to at least play the
yeah.
act.
Yeah.
We have to adjust.
Uh,
It's a totally different
Absolutely. No, that's
world.
great. I want to just say to Tanichi, she's here with me, and
Yeah.
then she may leave. So I thought it'd be nice for you to.
Way!
Hey,
Woo! How are ya?
Tanichi. Nice to meet you finally. I just see you in
How are you?
pictures.
Good to see you. All right. Are you guys
Yeah,
in country now? Are you in the
Yeah.
Philippines?
yeah. Because Singapore, it's very difficult now to take the kids there. We have two girls, as you know,
Yeah.
and every time you go there, they put you through this 14-day
Uh,
quarantine
Wow.
that you have to sit in, and it just doesn't make any sense with two kids. And sometimes it's kind of a luck of draw, right? If you get into a hotel where there's even a window, that is a big problem for kids, I think, if
yeah.
Yeah.
it's for 14 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Ooh.
tough times. Yeah, same thing here, for us. Well, you probably know this. For if we take the ferry to Manila, I think we have to do a quarantine
Yes.
coming
Mm.
back, which we have to pay for.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
Oh,
quite
wow.
difficult.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
can fly and
Yeah.
just do
If
the
you,
Hmm.
PCR test. And
yes.
yeah,
If you take the plane, there's no quarantine. But if you take the ferry, that you wanted to, uh, uh, spend a or don't spend a little money, then.
or
But
yeah,
you have,
it's
but
it's,
you
it's
end up,
hard for the average Joe in the
you end
Philippines.
up paying more actually. But anyway.
No, I agree. I agree. I
Yeah.
mean, so have you been traveling at all, or you've been staying put
We,
in Coron?
Yeah, we've been
What's
pretty much
the?
locked down for nearly a year. And as you know, our business sort of revolves on tourism. We do expeditions.
Yeah.
And so this is sort of reinvent ourselves. And we came up with Explorers Pod. And
Hmm.
we've just sort of branched out recently and started a new channel which focuses on current events. And welcome to
Yep.
that first show.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
So we're pretty stoked to have you here. Thank you very
A
much.
lot of
Wow.
pressure to be the first guest.
Oh, get
No.
ready. Yeah, so
It'll be
welcome to the
fun.
show. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
How are you?
Very good. Very good. Nice to be with you guys, and congratulations for launching your podcast. Super exciting. I was sharing with Janet. I'm thinking about launching one of my own um, in a near future.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to be part of this and see where it goes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, thank you,
Awesome.
Malik. We're very excited to have you. And, when you said yes, we're really very excited. And you said, okay, let's explore another world. And Malik will be the best person to be the first guest in our current event. So thank you. We know you're very busy, huh? But thank you for sparing your valuable time with us. Thank you, Malik.
Yeah, man, it was really cool
No,
when
anytime, anytime.
yeah, it was really cool when we first met you, or I first met you, and when you invited Janet to your that forum.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought that was a great event, and I learned a lot about you, and so great to have you back.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I forgot to even tell Janet that I wrote about her in my book. And it's so funny that I got an email from her, and I'm like, oh my God, I've been meaning to track her down and at least
Mm.
let her know that I have not forgotten about, how she has inspired not me, just but many others. And luckily, this was a great reason to get reconnected with you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, we heard about
Okay.
that through the grapevine, so to speak. One of Janet's
Uh,
associates sent her
Mm.
a little blurb, and
yeah,
Mm.
Chow. Yeah, Chao Costales. Yes.
Oh,
Si-
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. She
Yes.
works for Inspiro, yeah. And
yeah.
how do you
Yes.
know her?
Um, she's an acquaintance in Facebook, and I guess also
Oh,
with one of your colleagues with May, and so yes,
oh,
she sent a blurb about that, so that's how
Yeah,
we
quote
started
right
to
out of the book. It
yeah.
was cool. We were digging it.
oh, nice.
Yeah, so
That's
we
Yes,
got
awesome.
it.
that's
We got it
cool.
the straight quote. It was
Thank
cool. Thanks
you.
for that.
I love it. I love it. That's
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small
Oh,
world.
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, so just let's get started here. Let's get stuck into
Of
things.
course.
Malik, for our audience, can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a little background for our audience.
Sure. I grew up in India. I for the first 21 years of my life, and then went to the US to pursue my master's at that time. And I was super excited about it, but I realized very quickly that I was not meant to be an engineer. I have zero technical aptitude. I was doing really well in the school because I can memorize anything you put in front of me. But when it comes to fixing even a light bulb at home, I couldn't do it. So I decided to leave that world and join the nonprofit at the age of 24, which was unheard of at that age, when typically you get into
Yeah,
nonprofit after you're retired and you're trying
sure.
to give back to the gear. I was starting my career with a nonprofit world. And I did that for 5 years, but it was the most amazing.
How's your signal on
Okay.
your end?
I have a pretty here because I'm at one of the shared work office.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, we
The
we
reason I come here because I want to make sure that we have a really good signal.
okay. Yeah,
Okay.
we sort of off and on. We're in the middle of the bay. We're directly looking at the tower, so we have no shadows. And we have some days it's 50 megabytes per
Okay,
second, and then sometimes it just drops out. So, it's just part of being out in the province. It's our crux move, and we're just working with what we got.
that's a current event itself, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that we have to adjust with. Yes, exactly. So yes, can you? Yes, You said that you grew up and you didn't have any skills being an engineer.
No, no, he was an
Yeah,
engineer, and then you
yeah.
got into
Oh no,
nonprofit.
the nonprofit. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so I worked for a nonprofit in the US for 5 years, and that was unheard of. My parents almost disowned me because they're like, Malik, we spend so much money to raise you and educate you, and you're supposed to go to the US, get your master's, get a job, buy a house, get a car, get into this American dream.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are telling us that you left your education and you have decided to go into nonprofit. So it was a long time before they kind of came around and saw that I was really into it and the skills that I was gaining. Because as an Indian living in the US, I was at a fork. Either I stay with Indian friends all the time, or I can really assimilate myself in the local community. And this organization gave me that opportunity because I was the only Indian in the entire company. And
Wow.
we were going to places around the world where I didn't run into any Indians. So I had no choice but to be
Wow.
really get
Yeah,
out my comfort
reshape,
zone
look
and
at things.
really
Yeah,
understand. Yeah, it was amazing.
cool. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and your formative years.
Oh no, no, we were.
Sure. So
Yeah.
I grew up in India. I spent 21 years of my life there. Very traditional background in India. I have loving parents, two older sisters. I was the baby in the family, and obviously parents expected us to do well in our education, but they also took time to take us around the country to showcase what the country had to offer. So one of my beautiful childhood memories that I remember very clearly is when we took a long trip to different historic cities in India, but specifically Taj Mahal. And we have a very beautiful picture of a family visiting that, one of the seven wonders of the world. So it was really nice. And then I decided that it was time for me to explore the world. I was always interested in looking outside of India and see what else this world has to offer. And I had an opportunity to go to the US to pursue my engineering degree. So that's what I did. And, it opened a new chapter.
All right, that's great. So, getting on to your engineering degree, so you went to the U.S. For your engineering degree, and eventually you migrated there. How did that go? How was it for a start? Did you find that America gave you more freedom to think, travel, and speak, so to speak? Did this new environment give you a place to outgrow and become more of a thriving person?
Yeah, I mean, I write that about that particular experience in my book as well. That, when I was growing up in India, if you were really good in studies, and I don't know whether I was good in studies or not, but I know I was really good in memorizing things, which really helped in a school where you had to remember everything and write down in the test. Um, so when I went to the US, it gave me an opportunity to kind of look beyond the binary choices that I was given when I was growing up. Because I was good in school, I was either expected to become an engineer or a doctor. And honestly, looking back, I had no aptitude for either of those. I actually went to a medical school for 15 days. And then on the 15th day, I saw my first cadaver and I
Oh,
almost fainted.
wow.
So I knew that I was not meant to be a doctor. And then I went to engineering school, which I survived for 4 years and I had really good grades. But honestly, I don't remember anything. Like I have zero memory from the 4 years that I spent in engineering school. But what it did was it opened a door for me to go to the US, where I applied for a master's in computer science. And sure enough, when I arrived there, I had to do 2 more years of something that I hated from the bottom of my heart. So when I came across this nonprofit organization called Up with People, they were a traveling group of 150 young people around the world. And they came to my city, Lubbock, Texas, and they put on a 2 hour musical performance. They were in the community for 3 days. They did community service with local community service projects. They stayed with host families. And I thought, oh my God, that's what I want to do. So I did not go home after watching that program until it was 2 in the morning, until they interviewed me and until they confirmed that we'll have a slot for you in the next troop that starts a year from now, a year from that point. So I stayed and I confirmed that I can attend that program. Once I knew that I can attend, I actually stopped my master's in computer science. I mean, I was pretty much done with all my coursework. The only thing that was remaining was the thesis that I had to do. And I knew that if I did the thesis, I would become very comfortable and find a job that pays well and buy a house and buy a car. Instead, I chose a tougher route, which was to join that nonprofit organization that I knew would open up the entire world for me.
That's great.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
So the
Yeah.
entire world opened up for you. And Maulik, you have been one of the youngest expat CEOs here in the country, the Philippines. Can you describe
Mm-hmm.
yourself as a CEO? And how was it for you to be working here in the Philippines?
Sure. So, I mean, all of the experiences that I've gone through in my life kind of culminated in the CEO position because you want to have a very wide perspective on everything when when you are the CEO of a company. You cannot have a very myopic view where you only know finance and you look at everything from the glasses of
Right.
finance, or you only know marketing and you look at everything from marketing perspective. You have to have a perspective that cuts across all of these different aspects of a business and then make a decision. So having done all these crazy things in my life, having worked in nonprofit organization and having understood the human emotions and how they play a role in a business environment, it really helped me. And then obviously, my business background, I went and got my MBA. That played a role in being able to make the right decisions from a financial perspective for the company. So all of those things came together for me as a CEO. And I must say that I have to thank Manny Pangilinan, the chairman of PLDT, for giving me that opportunity. I mean, believe it or not, Janet, I think I have shared this story with you that when I was given that offer to join the CEO position of SPI Global, I was actually in the Himalayas. I was
Oh
on a
yeah.
sabbatical.
Ah.
I was tracking. I didn't do Everest. I have no. I don't think
Where
Yeah.
did you
that's
trek?
my calling, but I was doing. I did the base camp of Annapurna.
Oh, cool.
Ah,
Yeah. Beautiful,
Um,
wow.
beautiful place.
yeah,
Love that place. Yeah.
beautiful place. I had such a great time. I mean, hiking that place and meeting amazing people
Mm.
and living in those tea houses and
Houses,
eating,
Yeah.
the dal
momos,
bhat
dalbat.
every day with papad. Oh my God, I could do that again anytime.
uh,
Yeah.
Let's
you're
do it.
making us nostalgic as well. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah. So I think that that came together for me as the CEO.
Wow. Yeah. Now, from your humble beginnings, now that you have a book, and congratulations on your book, Malik, the Future Proof Your Career and Company. That's the book. And please tell us
Yes.
about more about your book and why did you write it in the first place?
Sure. So, you know, the book was not planned for last year. My plan was to leave my CEO position at the end of March of 2020, and as a family, basically travel around the world,
yeah.
doing another sabbatical, and visit 9 different countries. We had bought our flight tickets for the
Wow.
entire year. We had Airbnbs, and one by one, I mean, we were planning to start with a trip to Japan, going there during the Cherry Blossom Festival. Unfortunately, one by one, we had to start canceling all of those trips last year. And
Hmm.
I realized that this thing is not going anywhere. I will be not traveling with the family. I will be stuck here in the house. So I might as well make the lemonade out of the lemon. And then I
Hmm.
thought one of my list of one of the things on my bucket list was to actually eventually write a book. And I thought this is the perfect time because when you're writing
Yeah.
a book, I've heard the best practice is not to do it over 5 years, 10 years, in kind of a, you cannot write a book part time. You
Yeah.
almost have to commit yourself to 2, 3 months and just write it and not give up until it's done.
Climbing that
And
mountain.
this was the perfect time to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought this was the perfect time to do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great stuff.
Very, very good.
Congratulations on
Yeah.
that. Janet's uh,
Thank you.
read clear all the way through the book. I've have been quite busy with a lot of things and read about half of it in the last few days, and a lot of great stuff, a lot of great perspectives and insight in there. And I really was like, oh my God, this is the book of our times. So
Very
I
timely.
didn't know that until it arrived on our doorstep, which it arrived late. I don't know what happened. Got stuck
Oh,
in
it's
transit.
LBC.
And
Okay.
so we just got it a few days ago, and I was like, wow, what a great book. Perfect timing. So very, very happy to have a copy of that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that LBC would not reach out to you. I forgot that I think you would need to reach out to LBC, and I forgot to send a message to Janet that, hey, by the way, the book is on the way. Just check it with
Yeah.
LBC and see if it made it or not. But I'm glad it's with you,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the most
and I'm
yeah,
important
glad
thing, yes.
that you have a
Yeah, we
copy.
have
yeah.
the
Yeah.
book.
Thank you very much. So moving on, Malik, look, we're living in really strange and alarming times right now. COVID 19 presented to employers a simple choice, I think. Find ways for your workers to do their jobs safely or shut down. In your book, why do you think, in your book, you sort of say some things, but why do you think in the next few years are going to be the most disruptive in our time? And really, how can it get any worse?
Yeah, I know. I mean, tell me about it. I get that question all the time. And I think one way to look at that is to look at life from two quadrants and not just one quadrant. Typically, as human beings, we are programmed to wake up in the morning and deal with the most urgent and important issues in our lives. So we are always reacting, right? We wake up in the morning and something happens and we fix it. And the next day we wake up in the morning, something else happens and we fix it. So all of our life, we are basically waking up in the morning, we are fighting fires, we are getting rid of all the escalations coming to us in any business, even the business that you guys are running. And so what I share in the book is that as leaders and as human beings, I think we need to almost program ourselves to not only focus on the urgent and important things that are happening in our lives, but also take a step back and think about not urgent, but important things
Mm-hmm.
that may become urgent and important down the road.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought that it felt that everybody was just focused so heavily on COVID-19, and rightfully so, because it's now and it's urgent and it's important and it's uprooting people's lives like we have never seen before. But we must not forget that one day, just like it did in 1918, 100 years ago, after a couple of years, it faded away and life went back to normal. And we didn't talk about Spanish flu for 100 years. We only talk about Spanish flu of 1918 because we are going through the same situation right now. I gave another example that we don't talk about 9/11 like we did following what happened on 9/11 for a few months. And then it became a historical perspective. So I think
Sure.
we need to figure out a way to live in the moment, in the present, but also take a step back and prepare for the future. And when I look at the future, based on my experience, based on what I have done in business as well as my personal life, I felt that COVID-19 will pass one day, and hopefully sooner than later. And I'm praying just like
Yeah.
everybody else. And when it passes, what we'll be facing with are the three other forces that would be disrupting our lives. And these forces are not as visible as COVID-19. It's not, you don't read about these forces in the headlines every day. We don't hear about them in the TV newscast. We don't hear about them in Facebook news that gets spread out, among the friends. These forces are actually very surreptitious. They are almost infiltrating in our lives, and we don't even think about it. And I'm talking about, obviously, artificial intelligence, digital natives, and the freelancing or the gig economy.
Right.
We don't hear about them so much, and that's why they could be even more disruptive because we are not preparing for it. And that's why I thought that the next decade is going to be where all these things will come together. They will all peak at the same time together and have the potential to completely change the way we look at our work life.
Sure. I have to agree 100%. And I would also think that what's happened with COVID is it's actually accelerating that whole process.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I mean, look at Todd. I mean, you look at the companies who are really doing well.
yeah.
You know, we think that because of COVID, the whole world has suffered. But I was just going through some news articles, and it said that some of the biggest technology companies in the world, the likes of Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, they have had a best year in 2020 than in 2019. Even despite the COVID-19, they did better almost by 18% year over year. Whereas companies like J.C. Penney or Ann and Taylor or Brooks Brothers,
Yeah,
they
they're
all filed for bankruptcy.
yeah.
So what's the difference, right? The companies who were digitized, companies who embraced digital transformation even before COVID-19 did such a good job. But the companies who stayed so true to their brick and mortar, very traditional
Mm.
business model, they suffered and they paid the big price. Even Domino's Pizza.
Mm.
Domino's Pizza did 15% more revenue during last year than in 2019. Whereas Pizza Hut company, it's in the same business,
Hmm.
filed for bankruptcy. What's the difference between the two? Domino's Pizza is very digitally transformed over the last 12 years. Pizza Hut has remained the same and paid the price for it.
Sure.
Wow. Well, the digital narratives and gig economy in your book, the freelancers, you talk about them in a very positive way, and you call it that this as a disruptor as well. So, can you explain the
Mhm.
dichotomy on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Yeah. So
go ahead. Sorry.
please go ahead, Todd. Yeah.
No, sorry. I interrupted you. I
No, no,
think you go ahead.
I'll wait for you.
Well, anyway, I was saying, yeah, the digital natives,
All right.
the Gen Zers and the X, and you really talked about them positive and
Yeah.
this great sort of background, and you talked about the gig economy and the freelancers, real positive stuff on that side of things. But also, you're naming them as the disruptors. So it's an interesting dichotomy, and I was curious if you could explain that.
Yeah, because sometimes we think only negative things are disrupting our lives. Like we think COVID-19 is a disruptor, but it's a negative thing in our life. But there are also positive things
Sure.
that disrupted our lives. So, for example, when Henry Ford introduced automobiles
Mm-hmm.
to the world in the US in 1886, that was a disruptor, even though it was a positive thing. And so uh, we have now a couple of other disruptors like the digital natives and freelancers. And the reason they are disruptor is because they are storming the workplace now, the digital natives, right? By end of this decade, 67% of the workforce around the world would be made up of digital natives, the ones we are completely ignoring or maybe perhaps even making fun of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We need to stop doing that. We need to start understanding them because
Yeah.
they'll be the one running the show one day. And they won't be just the interns or the entry level managers. They would be the
JOTs.
bosses in the offices. So that's one piece. And then the other piece on the freelancer. Think about the current work model, right? What's the current model where an employer essentially brings in traditional employees who come to work every day and they work from the premises or the office space of the employer. That world is changing now. You don't need to be in the office per se to begin with, and we all know that because of the COVID-19. But secondly, you don't even need to be an employee of a given company. You can now work with a company in US or in Canada or in Austria or in New Zealand sitting here in the Philippines. And that changes the dynamic, right? Because we are used to seeing so many Filipinos leaving the country to explore the world of opportunities outside the Philippines. Now, because of freelancing, they can stay in the Philippines and can apply for the dream jobs that they have been dreaming about for many years by being here in the Philippines. And they can choose who they want to work with. They can choose their clients. Uh, they don't have to work with someone they don't like anymore. That is what the freelancing is doing. It's completely changing the way work gets done in the workplace.
So, in line with that,
Yeah.
Malik, you in the book you said, in line with the freelancer, you said that a big chunk of a big factor that brings in economy in the Philippines is about the OFW, or the overseas Filipino workers, and because
Yes.
freelancing, you know, the advantage of now is that they don't have to leave the country, they don't have to leave their community and families to go abroad and work. When you say these freelancers or OFWs do, because in my mind, it automatically registers to be OFWs, or domestic helpers, construction workers, um, people who
Engineers,
engineers,
nurses.
work in the hospitality, bartenders. Uh, are you pertaining to this OFW, the whole OFW, or you are just pertaining to a specific sector like copywriters,
Copywriters.
web designers, graphic artists, etc.?
Sure. So it applies to a whole bunch of different work that they would be doing, right? So obviously, if you're into any of the creative pursuits, copywriting, graphical designs,
Mm-hmm.
programming, um, anything that relates to creativity, you can do that from the Philippines. But there are other parts of economy that are also opening up. I mean, I know many friends. We think when we think of Filipino OFWs, we think that they're domestic helpers,
Yeah.
but
Right.
the professional OFW, the percentage of that is growing because the world needs people who understands marketing. The world needs people who understands consulting, people who understand people with engineering background. So the good news with the freelancing is that even if you're an engineer, even if you're a lawyer, even if you are a marketing genius, you're not creating anything, but you have a perspective on how to market something. You have a way to
Consult.
promote something. You can do those things by being here in the Philippines and get paid like if you were working somewhere else. Now, obviously, there are certain like if you're a construction worker, there's no way you
Yeah.
could be
Right.
virtually
Yeah.
laying bricks
Yeah.
sitting here in Dubai, for example. If you are a domestic worker, obviously you need to go to a place and help
Yeah.
out your employer. But it opens up a door for people now to sit here in the Philippines for the professional degrees and explore something without having to leave the Philippines.
Right.
Secondly, it also attracts a different group of people. So many employees in the Philippines today may be working for employers they may not like. They may
Mm-hmm.
not like, what, I don't get along with their philosophy, or I don't like the fact that they don't have any purpose for the business, or I don't like their management philosophy, or my boss is not the right person I want to work for. Now, that person who is in a traditional employment in the Philippines can suddenly say, what, I can go to Upwork or I
Yeah.
can go to freelancer.com
Yep.
and utilize my skills and talents for clients who may be looking for somebody like me
Yeah.
here
Sure.
in the Philippines. So that's another disruptive factor that plays out here in the Philippines.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. That's good.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Malik. So, in the second segment of your book, you talk about 5 dimensions of the future that we must master. Can you break this down a bit?
Sure. So in the book, I give you 5 dimensions of future that we must master to future-proof our career. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously I have the 5 dimensions of future that you master to future-proof your company. And I'll
Right.
probably start with 5 dimensions for the career.
Okay.
So one of the ways to future-proof yourself is, first of all, to have a view on what the future may entail, right? Uh, you can only prepare for something if you have a perspective on it. And the way to create perspective is to read as much as possible about where the trends are going and how you can prepare for that. But the 5 perspectives that I talk about in the book is, number one, the future is artificial intelligence. So how do you thrive in the era of artificial intelligence? Number one, you have to be the kind of human that AI cannot replicate. AI is now starting to replicate our mind in addition to our bodies and our hands.
Mm-hmm.
AI is starting to do basic cognitive tasks now. You already see AI working to predict and learn and reason in some of the applications that Netflix is using, for example, or
Yeah.
Amazon is using.
Sure.
But what AI is not able to do is to create something completely new. AI on its own cannot create a masterpiece or cannot create a masterpiece in music, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What AI cannot do is to inspire people. That is a very human thing.
Mm-hmm.
What AI doesn't have is a heart and a conscience. So it doesn't know what is fair and what is not. What AI cannot do today is look at things holistically. For example, think about if AI was the one running a company and the COVID-19 hit, AI would be completely at loss because AI can only do one thing that it's been trained. What it cannot do is look at a situation from a variety of angles and come up with a solution that is a holistic solution. Only humans have that ability to look at something holistically and come up with a solution. So that's one perspective. The second dimension of future is that future is change. Be a catalyst. Um, the the amount of change that is coming our way is only going to increase now, just because
Mm-hmm.
of the three forces that I talked about. And the people who will do well in that environment where the change is gaining speed, gaining momentum, is the people who are not only comfortable with change, but actually they are championing change. They
Sure.
are the ones who are becoming the catalyst for change. So,
Mm-hmm.
how do you cultivate the muscles for being a catalyst? You have to become comfortable being uncomfortable, because what does change do to you in your life? It makes
Yeah.
you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So if you on your own become uncomfortable without being pushed to become uncomfortable, then you are going to be in a better position to future proof yourself and your career. The third segment that the third element I talk about is that the future is unknown. So be a futurist. What does that mean? That nobody knows what the future may entail, but there are enough clues and there are enough trends
Sure.
around us today that give you a perspective on where the future may go. So, if I look at my 4-year-old daughter today, and if I see her not even having patience for even the 15-second TikTok, I know that the future, uh, the kids, when they grow up 20 years from now, 30 years from now, their approach to what attracts their attention and retains is going to be
Totally.
very different than what we have been used to.
Totally.
We are used to watching 2-hour movies
Right.
Yeah.
and, and sitting through it. And here we have a daughter who cannot even sit through 15-second videos. Then you read news about Hyundai partnering with Uber to create flying cars.
Mm-hmm.
They are just signing the contracts now, but guess what? That's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, they may start new things. So when you start coming across this news or these trends or your observations, don't just run away from them. Just say, oh, that's another thing. Pay attention to them, study them, Google them. It's like, hey, I just saw my daughter cannot sit through 15 seconds of TikTok. What's going on? And there are articles and blogs about them. Read them and see where the world is going. So
Yeah.
everybody has the ability to become a futurist, even though the future is unknown. So those are at least the three that I want to share with you, and I'll
Okay.
stop here to see if you have any questions about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Beautiful perspectives. Great
Yeah, the
insights.
kids. Man,
Yeah.
we're homeschooled. Oh, Malik, I don't know if you're aware. We have a son. His name is Himalaya. He's 14 years old. Anyway, we'll have him meet Malik later on.
Did you
After
meet
Of
him
course.
when we
Yeah,
were
yeah,
in?
yeah.
Did you meet Himalaya when we were in Manila?
I'm not sure.
Did you bring him there?
Yeah.
He
Was
was
with you?
around. I remember. Yeah, but
But
I
not.
don't know if he made it into the auditorium or the
Yeah.
venue. He was there. He was quite young.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was going to that because
Oh,
you mentioned your 4-year-old daughter, and he's 14,
yeah.
and we're homeschooling him, and it man, it's a bit challenging because our approach is like the old school pen and paper hardbound books, and it takes him 10,000 years to do a task like that. But once you give him the phone, you give him the iPad, boom, speed of light, it's done. It's like, wow.
Yeah. He's pretty savvy on the computer.
Anyway.
He's helping us now with the video editing, and
Yeah.
he's like the man of the team.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
great
that's
stuff.
And
part of his learning.
it's so funny you said that, because I was just talking to another parent and they said, my son is same age, 14 years. And it's like, he doesn't know how to write. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to write.
They don't
And
have
he's
the
like, we are
dexterity of the
forcing him to write. And
fingers.
He's good.
my
He's good.
perspective is, like, maybe there is no need for him to learn how to write. I mean, think about if
He's a
we
good
were like,
writer.
let's say we were growing up in
He's
18th century, and
yeah.
if my parents says, Malik, we learn how to write using the leaf of a tree, and we drew it and said, you must learn that. I'm
Right.
like, but why would I learn that? Because
Yeah.
I would never use that skill anymore.
Sure.
So
Exactly.
Things are
I think that's
changing.
another, it forces the parents to actually, yeah, it kind of forces us to take a step back and say, why am I asking this person to do what I went through when I
Mm-hmm.
was his or her age?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you think, while we're in there, do you think, because this is eventually my question, how do you future-proof your kids? Do you think it's still important to teach them how to write old school way, pen and paper, and read hardbound books, etc.?
Yes, of course. Come
I think it's important to expose them, right? So
on.
one of the things that I write in the book is that um, instead of people ask me, so you know, when I do webinars and when I'm doing the leadership seminar based on the book, people say, "What should I tell my kid to learn? What skill would be helpful that person?" And when they ask me that question, they're asking me about nursing, or they're asking me questions about whether they should learn coding. And what I tell them is like, take a step back. These are very specific skills, like nursing or coding or being an engineer, being good at math or being good at science.
Mm-hmm.
I said, take a step back and look at the meta skills, right? What we should be focused on as parents, at least in my opinion. Again, I'm a late parent. I know I'm 51 years old and I have a 4-year-old. So please don't take my word as a final authority on this
Hey,
situation. But my perspective,
I'm the
yeah,
same age.
my
We're the same age. We have our daughter is 2.5 years now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, Han Star, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think the way I look at it is that instead of forcing them on specific skills,
Mm-hmm.
focus on meta skills. What are
mhm.
some of the meta skills they need to learn? So one of the things that we are doing with our daughter is we are exposing her to as many different perspectives in life. So, we are exposing her to ballet, we are exposing her to soccer, I take her to golf on a driving range.
Cool.
She reads, when I was writing the book, she would actually read through some of the pages because we put her through that reading program.
Right.
So the goal is to make her the pony with many tricks, as I write in the book,
Yeah.
that instead of having her
Yeah.
focused on only one thing, just give them as many avenues to explore. And then automatically along the way, they would find their own
Yeah.
North Star, something
Yeah.
like you did, Janet. You said, okay, I'm growing up, I love mountaineering, and I'm going to climb Mount Everest. Imagine that. If your parents said, no, you're only going to do math and science and you're
Mm.
going to become a nurse, and that's
Mhm.
pretty much it, you would have missed out on what you achieved in your life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Good. That's
Great
good.
advice. Like
Great
that
advice.
stuff. Hey, so moving forward, here we go. Since COVID started, a lot of business were called non-essentials. And one of the things I realized or saw around our own little village here, a lot of people started small stores, sorry's, small restaurants. Looking at
Mm-hmm.
the Philippines and the world in general, it's quite a big and different infrastructure and demographics. So uh, how do people adapt to AI, the gig economy? What sort of businesses should young people around the world with such drastically different lifestyles and demographics and so on, so to speak, and infrastructures be looking to getting into?
Sure, sure. So I think from a Philippines perspective, um, what we should be really taking advantage of right now is the opportunities that freelancing brings to the table. Because artificial intelligence will come into play as soon as it becomes cheaper than human resources.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, many companies from around the world come to the Philippines because the labor is inexpensive, relatively speaking.
Sure.
So there is no need for them to, go all guns blazing with AI into a lot of the things that we do here in the country. But because they can get the humans to do what they want to do. One day there will be a point in time where the productivity in technology and every year the prices of the chips and all the raw material that you need in technology is going down. There will be a point in time where the technology that you need to implement AI, even in the sorry store, would be cheaper than hiring somebody else. And at that point, the AI will come into play. But for now, for the next 10 years, actually,
Sure.
what Filipinos should be really taking advantage of is this opportunity to serve the world, make a good living by being in the Philippines through freelancing.
Mm-hmm.
If Filipinos have not gone on Upwork.com yet, if they haven't gone on Freelancer.com yet, if they haven't gone on 99designs.com yet, or TopTal.com yet, then they're missing out. a perspective on what else they could be doing with their life. So my suggestion, whenever I meet with my colleagues or people while I'm doing webinars, I always tell them that do as much research as you can about how you can make a living being a freelancer, because it opens up a door. And you don't have to make a change right away. You don't have to say goodbye to your employment today and say, hey, I'm done, I'm starting
Yeah.
freelancing. Start small, maybe take a couple of gigs a week that requires only 2-3 hours, or maybe 5-10 hours a week.
Yeah.
And then if it picks up and you like what you're doing and you enjoy this variety of things that you're working with, the fact that you're working from around people from around the world, then you can jump into that. So among the three factors that I talk about, the one that Philippines can really take advantage of right now is the freelancing.
Okay. Malik, in 2014, you and your team in Aim High invited us over to have a talk, and I would say that it was one of the nicest forum that I've attended, and my family really had a great
That's
time.
cool.
It's not only because it was the professionally done, and it's impressive that how comprehensively you captured my short life story after a casual call. That
There's
was
a
really
couple of
cool.
calls. You called me a couple times. I
Yeah,
remember that. He
Yeah.
studied you.
Yeah.
yeah.
And also it's because
I read
how
everything I can about you.
yeah,
I
it
remember that. I was
was.
like, these long phone calls
Yeah.
coming in. I was like, wow, this guy's
From
really
from
studying
my
it.
tennis career. You're playing tennis too, right?
I did, but I stopped. I got a little bit of a tennis elbow. Then I started golf, and now I have a golf elbow. So
Okay.
it's like,
All right. Anyway, yes. Yes, and also because we were really received and accommodated really very very generously, and it was really one of the highlights of our 2014 because that was before Todd and I was about to leave for Nepal to guide a
yeah,
30-day
Peak climb
three peak climbs
expedition.
and 17-day Everest base camp trek. So
yeah,
yeah. So anyway,
yeah.
um, this speaking engagement invitations are slowly or have been started to be replaced
Yeah, there's
by virtual meetings, like exactly what we're doing right now. And I think in one
Yeah.
point. There are advantages of that because companies don't have to sort of like rent a venue and fly in gas, believe them in a hotel, cater the food, etc., etc. But obviously, at the other point, we are losing the human interaction, the human touch, so to speak. Do you think
Yes.
that's where we're going? And what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, if, you know, while I was able to write the book, I wish I didn't write the book during COVID-19 because the book promotion, you want to be as close to as people, as close to people as possible because you're imparting part
mm,
of your heart to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the digital platforms don't capture all of it. I have done so many webinars since I launched the book, and I wish I had the opportunity to do every one of them in person because
yeah,
there is only so much you can exude, so much you can
sure.
project through
Yeah.
the digital platform. It's another thing to be in front of people. When I was given a choice recently to do a webinar, and they said, well, we have 100 people, but 5 of them can be in person if you would prefer in person. I said, you know what? I'm coming in just for those 5 people. And we had a very big room, so it was socially distanced. But I was talking to these 5 people standing in front of them because I felt that was so much natural for me to do
Yeah.
versus doing this digital thing. So I personally think that while for now these webinars or the podcasts are okay through digital channels, eventually we'll get to a point where we'll go back to what it feels to be a human again and how to uh, create that connection with other people in person. And I cannot wait to
Yeah,
get in front
Yes.
of
yeah.
Hopefully.
500 people because I'm more natural there versus sitting on a chair in front of a camera
Yeah.
and trying to project.
Yes, yes. It feels so unnatural, right? Like talking virtually
Yeah.
here. But, Well, we
Absolutely.
have to do some.
Second best thing. It's not too bad. Thanks for gracing
Yes.
our afternoon.
Yeah,
Yes, of course.
absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, so you worked in the U.S., you worked in the Philippines. I think you even worked in Singapore for a while. You have quite a global perspective. What things, what practices, what things should we be doing to improve business here in the Philippines?
Well, I think there is a reason why, first of all, so many international companies are coming to the Philippines because clearly Philippines has something really good to offer to the world. You guys have an incredibly talented workforce, people who are willing to learn. I have read and I have heard and I have, you know, observed that myself that Filipinos are eager to become better. That is such a beautiful thing. I mean, if there is a large community that's willing to invest their time, effort, money in becoming better person, better leader, better manager, that puts the country in a different stratosphere in my
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why if you look at BPO companies, the industry that I was a part of, I came here the first time in the Philippines in 2001, and there were only 20,000 people working at that time. Today, there are over 1.3 million people working in the industry. Why? Because companies have really gravitated towards the Philippines and what it has to offer. I think what it can do better going forward is learn the best practices from other countries. And what I mean by that is instead of training our managers to become the best managers of the Filipino people or the best leaders of the Filipino people, I think one of the things that we invested in Spiro was that we train our leaders, Filipino leaders, to become global leaders. We told them that you don't want to become the best leaders of the Filipino people. If we put Americans under your leadership, if we put people from Latin America from your under your leadership, if we put people from India under your leadership, you should become an international manager now, right?
Sure.
Because we have had 20 years to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
So as long as Filipinos now go beyond becoming the best Filipinos they can be, but they go beyond becoming the best global leaders they can be. That's the next thing that we need to impart on the leaders who want to take their careers to the next level.
All right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Maulik, you like to share your thoughts on how to lead people and where the world is going. Let's dig a little deeper today into current events. Now, are you familiar with Jeff Bradley, the recently retired president of AT&T West?
No, but I would love to know more about it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's my brother, and he recently retired.
Okay.
Just he's a few years older than me. But the reason I brought him up, when I think about you, I think about him. You guys have been in some very similar situations, some similar industries in technology and so on. My brother's, I thought you guys might have crossed paths somewhere, but needless to say, you haven't. But Jeff was quite involved in media. You know, they bought Time Warner recently, and he's been involved in technology. He used to get together with Zuckerberg, I think, about once a week. So you guys have these similar backgrounds. You're in technology, and he's really involved in the current events today. And so I thought that we'd talk about some of those things and see if you could shed some light on some of these hard topics. So bear with us. Okay. The experiences in the last year have been completely weird, to say the least. We've been in lockdown. The entire planet has been locked down to slow the spread of a virus. We've quarantined billions of healthy people, and we've ordered people to wear masks, shut down businesses, bars, and school. Scientists, virologists, statisticians are being censored because of their views, their professional views. Social media accounts are being purged of individuals whose opinions don't support mass vaccinations of billions of people as an experimental vaccine, so to speak. What do you think about this and all this weirdness?
Yeah, I mean, it's been extremely difficult times in many ways. But at the same time, when I look around and I browse through news headlines and the streams coming on my phone and my iPad, I also pick up on so many great things have come out of it too. Even in my neighborhood here in the Philippines, so many people, because they couldn't do what they are normally doing on a regular basis, they have started their own businesses. I have seen people becoming entrepreneurs who never thought they had it in them to become an entrepreneur. Somebody started baking cakes because they have always wanted to bake cakes in their lives. Somebody started the business of bringing fruits from the provinces and sharing it in the villages. My wife is, trying to start a new business during this crisis as well. So I agree with you that there are a lot of craziness that has happened over the last 12 months during this crisis. But what what uh, what impresses me and what makes me feel so good to become a human is that uh, there's so much resiliency in us that we forget sometimes. That if something happens, we are very quickly able to change our perspective and become better at something that we have always wanted to. So it's been kind of a plus and minus from my perspective that, this last 12 months have shown us the worst in us, but also shown us the best in us.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Thanks for the positive feedback there. We really appreciate that. That helps all of us out a bit. So, in retrospect of the current events, the censorship and some of the banning of, let's say, the sitting president, but big tech now effectively decides who has the right to speak, who has the right to assemble online, and who has the ability to build a business in the digital age. We think this is a bit concerning. What are your thoughts on this?
No, absolutely. I mean, if you look at our lives, essentially there is a point in time where these few companies would be literally managing and controlling our lives in terms of what we see, what we read, what we consume, how we consume it, and what gets supported and what gets become part of the cancel culture that you just
Right.
referred to, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there has to be, we have to find a common ground where these monopolies are not going to completely rule us in a way that takes us in a wrong direction as a humanity, right? We need to
Yeah,
have checks and balances, just
sure.
like in everything else that we have in life.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah, so that's something we're like, where do we go? We've been sort of thinking, this is a very powerful force in today's age, the digital age and digital business, and well, it's like trying to find solutions there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we are very confident in asking you these questions, Malik, because we know that you're in the business, you're an analyst, and uh, basically your book says, future proof your company. So we really like to know your insights
we're gonna
and
ask you tough questions.
to make us more understand really what's happening,
Go for
and
it.
Yeah,
and so
Sure.
a part of your book, you said freedom is the biggest currency now, and yes, we
I
believe
agree.
so.
Love
So,
it.
especially when you speak about
Yeah.
freelancing nowadays, looking at today's current
Yeah.
situation, censorship of people, business being expunged from digital platforms, etc., etc. Do you think we are headed into a more sovereign, privileged, self-governed time in the next decade, or the other way around? What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think you have to look both sides of the coin, right? So, because of the social media and because of the companies that we just talked about, we have the ability to very quickly share our perspectives like we have never before. Just,
Yep.
Yeah.
I look back when I was growing up in India, nobody cared what Maulik thought.
Yeah.
And I had no voice in any
Mm-hmm.
matter that was going on. The only voice I had and other citizens had in India was every 5 years there was an election and we had a chance to vote somebody in or vote somebody out. Now you have to almost win their popularity vote every single day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every
Right.
day we have to wake up in the morning and say how many people like our post and how many comments are there and how many dislikes are there, right?
Yeah.
Things that we didn't have to worry about. So with that comes both the positive and the negative. Number one, positive because we are able to share our views and our ideas and our thoughts very easily with others. The negative that comes with that is that certain voices gets magnified and amplified more than the others, and because of the technology, like the bots.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you are looking at someone's Twitter feed, you don't know whether these are real people
Yeah.
responding or these
Exactly.
are
Or
the
Sure.
bots.
trolls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there are times we can tell that, oh, okay, that's definitely a bot, but that's changing as well. So we have to kind of find that balance of having a having a voice, but with having a voice comes the responsibility to use that voice appropriately and not just to to dish somebody in the social media or to bring somebody down or to cancel somebody using the cancel culture that we have cultivated over the years.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very challenging. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Um, okay. So move forward. So we have children like you do, and again, I'm late bloomer like you are, and which has really, I'm so happy because it's really shaped my life and sort of changed my thinking
Yeah.
with my children, and I'm very grateful for that. And we're also believers in holistic medicine and therapies. I think last time I spoke to you, you and I were talking
Yeah.
about you had a really cool idea about building like a holistic retreat where there was meditation and holistic therapies and so on. I think I remember that about a discussion we
Mm.
had. It was one of your
Yeah.
interests.
Yeah.
But that's something that's really important to us. We like holistic therapies and medicines and meditation, and it's something we really believe in. We also are really big believers in freedom of movement. And that has given both Janet and I, and you as well, such great opportunities in life. That opportunity to travel and move, to see other cultures, to associate with other people, has really given us the opportunity to outgrow. That said, I'm moving on to sort of some of the things I read yesterday's headlines. It says the International Air and Transport Association has announced this past few days that it'll launch a COVID-19 travel pass by March, which says it'll give travelers a way to display results and confirmations that they've received vaccines.
Mhm.
Global governments, big corporations, mainstream media, and big tech are talking and pushing vaccinating the entire population of the globe with an experimental vaccine. Phase 3 trials have not been completed or will not be completed for 2 years. There was never any thorough animal trials, never conducted. There's no data for long-term adverse side effects. Should medical intervention be a personal choice and not something forced onto the general public by businesses? What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, you're sensing that in our lives right now, right? I mean, we have put our names in our village list for the vaccinations because partly because we are in a process of moving to Singapore, and unless we have vaccinations, if you go to Singapore, you get stuck in their very strict quarantine for 14 days. And sometimes, if you're unlucky, you are given a room that has no window, and
Yeah.
imagine doing that with two young kids
Yeah.
with you. So, but when we shared this news with our folks working at our home, our house staff, they said, no, 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 we are not ready yet to get vaccines. And obviously, I think one thing the governments, what they need to do is to share very transparently whatever they know about the efficacy and the efficiency of these
Sure.
vaccines.
Yeah.
If this is the only way we can go back to whatever new normal that would be, then we owe it to the world that we support this, global initiative. Because otherwise, if we don't do that, then this may stay with us for the next 5, 10 years. God knows how long. But if there is a way we can collectively do it, then it's something that we need to think about. But to your point, we must have as much data points about it as much as possible. Like even I read that even after you have taken vaccine, that doesn't mean that
Yeah.
you cannot transmit it to someone else. So that doesn't really solve the problem of opening up the world again, because even if I have vaccines, if I have contracted the disease, I may still pass it on to somebody who doesn't have the vaccine yet, right? So
Sure.
Yeah.
we'll have to share as much data points with the people as possible and let the people decide what they want to do with their lives.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, Todd, in the US, vaccines are a huge conversation. I mean,
Sure.
it's
I
a big
think it's a world
question mark
conversation.
in
It's
many
a
people's
world.
minds.
Now it's a
Yeah,
world conversation, and it's
yeah,
probably it's
absolutely.
on the most talked about list. But you know, we're not anti-vaccination. I grew up in America, and you know, I was vaccinated with a few things when I was quite young. Um, but we're pro-choice, and we think there's a huge difference between coercion and making a free choice. So when we have airlines
Hmm.
saying you can't fly unless you have a
Yeah,
vaccine, when we have big corporations saying you can't go here, you can't do that, you won't, it basically we see it as taking away freedom of movement, freedom of choice, and it's coercion by big corporations, and there's a big difference about pro-choice. And
Yeah.
anyway,
I think these are the things that we really need to
yeah.
talk about more, and and
Hmm.
that's why we're really in a great appreciation for you, Malik, for really
yeah,
sharing your
thank
insights.
you.
It, we don't mean to put you on a spot or something, right? Like we
Yeah.
just want to talk because we need insights. We need insights. We need to understand what's happening, and
Yeah.
I'm
It,
very
it
grateful.
it all
Yeah,
needs to be debated. It all
absolutely.
needs to be
Yeah,
talked out. I think we
yeah,
do need more data points, and things are moving quite fast. And you
yeah.
sort of look around the world like, wow, that just happened. That's been a year. It's been a
Yeah,
year. All that
March,
Yeah,
happened.
exactly.
March, right?
So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, it's like, can you
Yeah.
slow this down a little bit, please?
Well,
Yeah.
well, Malik, have you always been in the corporate world? You said that you were in a non-profit, right? Non-profit
Yeah.
organization. But ever since, have you always been in a corporate world, or have you explored any other areas of expertise?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
when you talk about explore those dreams that you and I spoke
Yeah.
about last time we met, is there
But
anything like that in the future for you and your family? New businesses, new business ventures?
Well, yeah, I mean, we are thinking about a few things, but we are at a point in our lives where we can, really follow our passions. And so both my wife and I have a list of things that we really enjoy doing, and we are focusing on it. So obviously, in my case, for example, I have narrowed down, what I tell people is simplify your life. And if you have a choice, if you can afford to do it, only do things that make you happy. Now, some people cannot do that because they have to make a living, and sometimes you have to work for somebody that you don't like because they pay your bills. But there is a way, if you can, if you can really live that life, then do that. And I have gotten to that point in my life where I love doing yoga. I obviously love
Right.
sharing my thoughts and exchanging ideas and thoughts with people like you. So I've been doing that. One of my dream, if you were to ask me when I was growing up in India, what would you have become if there was no limitation? If there was no limitation of doctor or engineer, I would have said that I would have loved to become an anchor on TV because I always looked up to those
Oh,
people. And
right.
so
Cool.
one of the reasons I want to launch my own podcast is
Do it.
I don't need to go look for a job in TV station. I can interview people like, I mean, you guys are doing a great job asking tough questions and keeping it really nice and smooth. That's a skill, right? So I'm thinking of doing that. I enjoy writing. I enjoy doing public speaking. I'm slowly getting into golf again,
oh.
despite my golf
Elbow.
elbow. So my philosophy in life is to find things that really bring joy to me, not just externally. These are not like I want to buy this or I want to acquire this. None of them are related to buying or
Mhm.
making a purchase. It's all about doing things that make you happy, right? So my wife has done the same thing, and hopefully we can, live the life in the way that we're meant to by following our path. And if we can, then we'll be grateful. to
Yeah.
the
Great.
universe.
Hey, so I want to give you a little inspiration on your idea about podcasting and a little perspective from our side. It's
Sure.
new for us, and
Yeah.
it was nothing. I mean, I sort of talked about it with Janet about a year ago, sort of had the ideas. And anyway, COVID sort of pushed us in that direction. But one of the things I want to say when you say do something that makes you happy, what I have realized about this show and podcasting, every show that we do, when you get done, you're at the end of that show, when it's all over, you walk away from it like you're filled with all this knowledge,
Yeah.
insights and perspective. You're
Yeah.
sharing information with people, and it's like
Yeah.
you're learning from others while bettering yourself.
Yeah.
It's this great combination, man.
Absolutely.
It's lovely, and you just go away, you shut it all down. You're like, wow, I feel good. So
Yeah.
go for
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's the plan, and I want to tap into the likes of Mani Pangilinan and his story of life and how he grew up from
Yes.
where he was to becoming now a business tycoon and a legend here in the country.
Sure.
And what was that like? And I want to actually zoom in on all the difficult things, right? Because we only hear what he has
Yeah.
achieved, and we think that,
Yes.
oh my God, it's been very easy for him. But I
Yes.
really want to sit down with him and just talk about every single failure that he went
Sure.
through and what did he learn
The
from it and why did he not give up,
Yeah.
or did he give up and
Yeah, yeah.
found
Just bounce
the
back.
You
Yeah.
ask these
courage to
questions
go,
and
right?
the
And at one
stories.
point, maybe, yeah, I would,
Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great
and I would
stuff.
like to, talk about Mount Everest one of these days as well. And how do you capture that? How do you have that motivation to do something? And so, Janet, one of these days I'll shoot you a note
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we'll get you on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you should also ask Todd how he sailed around the world without an engine for 18 years, mostly
I'll
by
tell you how.
himself.
Yeah,
I was,
You think, Maulik, you think I'm
that would be a
crazy?
couple.
I know you think I'm
You
crazy
kn-
climbing Everest. He's crazier, sailing around the world without an engine.
And then,
yeah, anyway, you know
then
how?
I think then it's a couple show, yeah.
Yeah, it was because I was young and ignorant and I wanted to self torture myself. So, also,
But
go ahead.
what you guys are doing is amazing. And I
Thank
know
you.
this is your podcast, so you should be asking me questions and I should be answering. But I do want to say that I have had very limited conversations with you guys. We met only once during that event. I
Yeah.
have seen Janet speak twice now, one in 2007 and one in 2014. But I always left those meetings very inspired and knowing that if you want to do something that people may think it's so crazy, if you believe in it and if you put your heart and soul into it, it will manifest itself. And like what you're doing now, I mean, when I read Janet's email about how you're building those floating houses, what an amazing concept. Who comes up with that, right? I mean, sitting here in Manila, I would never think about that. But not only you thought about it, it's one thing to think about it, right? Everybody
Yeah.
can think about it. To manifest it,
Yeah.
oh my God, that requires incredible tenacity and perseverance and skills to make it happen. So kudos to you both for
Thank you.
living your dream and having gone through that after receiving some massive setbacks. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember getting a story about you through May, Janet, that one of the typhoons that really destroyed a lot of
Yeah.
things in Corona, and you guys were very heavily impacted by it, and not giving up. I mean, where is that desire to stand up and go and keep going comes? I would like to talk about that on my podcast one day.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. You
Thank
know,
you.
I also was speaking of the floating homes. Yeah, what a great place we have here. What a great place to live and work. Uh, we really are social distancing. We're in the middle of the bay, and it's a lovely house. We have a great viewing deck, 360 view on the roof, and yeah, it's nice. But I keep thinking that your yoga center, your
Yeah.
holistic, this could be a perfect place for something like that, where you could teach yoga and bring people for a retreat. So
Yeah.
might be something you look to. Floating,
No,
floating
I
is the future.
definitely want to do that. And trust me, as things settle down, I definitely want to bring my family there so they can meet you in person. I want my
Yeah,
daughters to see
Oh
you
yeah,
guys and also
definitely.
do the sailing trip that you have,
that'd be great.
and kind of go through that experience. I have never done that. I don't think Tanishi has done it, but it sounds so exciting. And I know my daughters would be at that point at an age where they would appreciate the nature
Yeah,
as it is
Oh,
versus
yeah, it's
all
great.
the,
yeah.
frills that comes to living in the
Oh,
city.
we are so excited. We are excited if you're given that chance, to meet your family in person. Ooh, that's very
Let's do
exciting.
it. You
We're
got a place
looking
to stay.
forward
Come
to
on over. We'll
it.
show you around.
No, no, absolutely.
It'd be fun.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Um, yeah. Okay. So just a little update from our side. Next week we've got a pretty cool
Yeah.
podcast going. We've got just give you a little heads up. Sort of a
Yeah.
pretty cool event. We've got Colonel Terry Virts, the commander of the International Space Station, space shuttle pilot, and test pilot. He'll be on our show next week.
Next
So
week.
that should be a really cool
That's
learning
amazing.
experience.
So we're exploring the space.
I love this stuff because you could do
No,
a lot of
absolutely.
research on people and you learn about this. It just broadens your perspective about the world. So we're pretty stoked about that.
I'm pretty sure he will have a different perspective of the world. He's literally outside the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've seen
Absolutely,
it from
right?
the other side. And the only thing I would say is that if you have me as your guest for the first podcast, things will only get better from there.
Yeah.
No, don't go there. We
So
actually,
amazing.
I don't know, man. That's not
No,
how
no,
it
no,
works.
amazing.
Yeah, what a beautiful
Yeah.
time we've
No,
had with
that's
you as
I'm
well.
super happy for you. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
let's
Yeah.
talk about your book a little bit. Just
How?
a final closure on your
Yeah.
book. How does our audience find it? Give us a little background there. Is it just the regular? Is there a few different venues?
Sure. Mhm. So if you're in the Philippines, folks can just send a quick email to us at info@maulikparek.com.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's info@maulikparekh.com. And we will be glad to ship the book anywhere within the Philippines. But if you are outside of the Philippines, then you can obviously buy the book on Amazon. If you're in the Philippines and like to read ebook, you can actually get a copy of an ebook through Amazon Kindle. So two ways to do that: send us an email or just go on Amazon.com and look for my name, Maulik Parek, and you'll see the book.
Cool. All
Okay.
right. Yes, definitely. To our audience, it's a must read,
Yes,
and we really
it is
encourage
the
everybody
book.
to go.
It is the book of our day today. Everybody should be reading this book
Yes.
if you're thinking about the future.
Yes, definitely.
So, yeah. Okay. Hey,
Very good.
I think we're about out of time. We're going to wrap it up. I want to
Yes.
thank you so much for all your incredible insights and perspectives. Everything is quite incredible. Your book, it's quite profound. I think everybody should get their hands on it. Thanks for your time, Maulik.
Thank you. Thank you, Maulik. Really, really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And I hope that this is not going to be the last time that we're going
See
to
you in Quran.
talk.
Hey, yeah. And if
Yeah.
we're heading up to Manila here in the near future, we'll give you a shout and let you know, and we'll get together for a lunch or
If you're
a
still
dinner
in the
sometime.
country, eh?
Yes, no, absolutely. Please do send us a note, and I would be glad to meet with you. I have a feeling you guys are the people. My paths will continue to keep crossing, and I'm praying that they will keep crossing.
Yeah, us as well.
And every time it crosses, I'm sure we will be able to learn a little bit
That's right.
new stuff from each other and take it to the next level. So once again, Maraming Salamat for hosting me. I'm super excited for your podcast and the way you guys are build your amazing life in Quran. One of these days, I'll make a trip to see you guys there. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.